Hi, everyone. That was basically my entire talk. So I'm Evan. Like she said, I'm a composer. I used to do physics. I love physics. I love the universe. I love the cosmos. It's such amazing stuff. And so I'm here to talk about the composition of the cosmos. What that means is it means writing music that isn't just about the universe, but that is, in a way, at least for a short, fleeting moment, the sonic manifestation of the universe. And so to do this, we have to deal with kind of two big questions. The first is, how do you compose the cosmos? What does that mean? And so I'm going to address that at length. That's basically the whole theme of the talk. And what is the role of the composer? So, what is my job as a hopefully creative and good composer and individual in this entire discourse? So to start with the how question, I think it's important to note briefly that I'm not the first person that's ever thought, oh, look, science and music, they kind of make sense. Maybe there's a connection. The ancient Greeks certainly thought it. In ancient Greece, the Pythagoreans were studying tuning systems and discovered that simple fractions would generate perfect and imperfect intervals. And even in Plato's Republic, not to do too much foreshadowing, there's this amazing quote, which was translated by someone, I don't know who, but come on, isn't that amazing? The eyes are for seeing the stars, and the ears are for hearing the harmonious motions, and that these are sister sciences. Like, we don't learn about that anymore, but we should, because I think he knew what was going on. More recently, although I don't know how recent Kepler is, Kepler, in his book Harmonious Mundi, talks about, in one of the chapters, how you can actually, he creates and kind of writes down a better theory of tuning using geometric relationships. And then in the following chapter, uses the harmonic relationships he develops between pitches to then talk about orbits of the planets in the solar system, which, again, we don't really see academic papers written like that anymore, but maybe one day. Much more recently, composers like Xenakis have written pieces that use really complex mathematics and architecture, statistical modeling to generate musical material. This is a copy of a graph from his piece Pithropraktika, which uses Brownian motion to generate musical material. Nowadays, we have composers doing things like spectralism. This is a spectrograph of a piece of music I wrote that you're about to hear. And in general, composers use computers all the time now. And why not? You can control everything about sound. You can control the frequency, the articulation, the dynamic, the spatialization. You could set up a room and put 1,000 speakers in it and have a different sound come out of each one. And with that amount of kind of creative potential, who wouldn't move into the realm of computers? And I've done a little bit. This is from another piece I've written. In general, music and science, they're in love. They've always been in love. And I'm just there to kind of photograph their journey while I'm here. So to talk about what I do specifically, I think it's best to kind of just talk about a piece I've written. So I ask you to imagine entropy. If you can't imagine entropy, that's okay. I'm going to try and explain it very quickly. Entropy is the measure of disorder in things, right? So you might have a system like an egg, and then you drop it, and the egg breaks. And it's very easy to break an egg. It is very, very hard to put an egg back together. That's because the energy that went into breaking the egg increased its entropy, and the amount of work you have to do to unbreak the egg requires a lot more entropy. So with that kind of idea, and basically the idea that chaos is always the result of order, and that all systems move from order to chaos, here's a piece I wrote, hopefully. Excellent. So this is Heat Death. It's not a memoir about my life growing up in Florida. It is it is instead a piece about the prevailing theory of the universe. Well, one of the prevailing theories about the end of the universe, which is that one day, a long time from now, not ago, the universe will end. And the way it will end will sound something like that. And that basically what will happen is all the entropy everywhere in the universe will reach its maximum state, and there will be no more stars, no more planets, no more people, no more information. The entire history of our existence will be gone. The things that you could design or imagine that could hold the information that we even once existed will also be destroyed. Sad times. And to remind us of the future, that's what my piece is about. And so you have to ask yourself, how do you create a piece of music that does that goes from being highly ordered to something that's incredibly chaotic and ultimately dead? And so, in essence, my kind of, job in life is to turn this into that. So this is another piece I wrote, Cosmos 1 for orchestra. It's excellent. And so to kind of deal with that, my method is to take physical processes that happen in nature and map them to musical variables, and then use the equations that actually control those processes as a function of time or of energy or of something, and then generate a musical discourse. So for my piece Heat Death, this is how I mapped things. I only took two main variables. One day, the temperature of the universe will reach a very cold equilibrium, ever so slightly above absolute zero. And so that is mapped to the dynamics, which is the loudness and softness of the music, the rhythmic density, how fast or slow the events happen in the music, and the mean frequency, which means the average pitch. So at the beginning of the piece, when the temperature is very high, the dynamics are very loud, which you just heard. Everything's really fast and dense, and all the notes are relatively high. As the piece goes on and the universe cools, the temperature drops, the dynamics get softer, the rhythmic density slows down, and the mean frequency, which would be the average pitch of the overall piece, also gets lower. The entropy, which is roughly inversely proportionate to the temperature for the nature of my piece, is mapped to what I call stillnesses, and that as the entropy increases, the length of stillnesses get longer, and they happen more often. It's also mapped to the width of the frequencies. So at the beginning, when the entropy is very low because the temperature is very high, all the frequencies, so all the notes that the instruments are playing are within about an octave and a half, which is kind of like an amateur singer's range. And by the end, the instruments in the ensemble are playing their lowest notes and their highest notes simultaneously, which is an almost 10-octave range, because the accordion is an excellent instrument. So that the instruments in my piece are accordion, clarinet, violin, viola, and cello. These are the timings of them. And so each of those instruments are governed by the exact same equation, and it's this line in the middle. However, just like in the real world, where all the atoms and molecules and everything that does physics is controlled by the same physical equations, there's chaos, there's randomness through the interactions. So at the beginning of the piece, everything is ordered and tied together, and by the end of the piece, things become very chaotic. This is entropy. Another interesting thing to note is each instrument plays approximately 100 different events. 50 of them happen in the first 2 minutes. The other 50 happen over the next 7.5, 8 minutes. So that is clearly this piece slowing down. That is the universe falling apart. So this begs the other big question: who is that guy? It's me. And who does he think he is, right? How dare I arbitrarily choose to assign these things and create this musical universe? I mean, looking at that graph, it didn't end. It ended arbitrarily because I cut it off at 100. It could have gone on forever. This piece could last forever, just like the universe will. And you wouldn't like that very much. My performers would like it even less. And so dealing with this question is a question that I don't just have to deal with because I'm writing science music, but it's a question all composers have to deal with. What is the role of the composer? So the role is obviously I made this, right? This is my piece. This is pages 14 and 15 from the score. We actually might be, I think we're right here, in it. And everything you see there, I made. I chose every decision, every dot, every pixel is a decision I made. Obviously, some of them are pragmatic, I'm going to use conventional Western classical notation. I'm going to use a time signature, things like that. But, I've become, in essence, the intelligent designer. I'm the god of this universe. And, of course I am, I'm a composer. And we all think that. And all of these decisions are governed because, me as the intelligent designer believes that these are the best ways to generate music out of physics. And so that then leads to the question, is this even art? Because all I did was write down an equation, put it in Excel, have Excel tell me what measure number and beat to put everything on, what pitch it should be, what dynamic it should be, what articulation it should have. Maybe that's not art. I can't answer that question. I don't even know what's on here. But I can tell you what's going on. So what's going on is that, yes, I wrote this piece in basically one afternoon where I decided this is the physics I'm going to use, and this is how I'm going to use it. And then I put it into Excel. And then it was a few weeks of then taking it out of Excel and putting it in the score. But I think that is an artistic decision because, perhaps I'm qualified to talk about physics because I studied physics for a while. And perhaps I'm qualified to write music because they're letting me do it here. And they're playing it. And so in that case, I'm choosing to make these decisions because I think they're the right artistic decisions to make. But the reason why I think they're right is for the same reason that when we look at a picture like this is a satellite capturing an asteroid. This has never happened before, but this picture looks pretty good. And we trust that the artist who made this picture made it with the utmost integrity to the science, and that even though we'll never go out and look at an asteroid, we can trust whoever made it that that's probably what an asteroid looks like. And that's probably what the thing that captures an asteroid looks like. And in the same way that this is an artist's rendering of something, I hope that my music is the artist's rendering of the universe. And so that really brings us to the end. This picture is perhaps the most amazing image ever made. This is the Hubble Ultra Deep Field. They pointed the Hubble Space Telescope at a point in the sky that had nothing. It was completely empty for 10 days. And when they looked at the picture, there were 10,000 galaxies in it. That's cosmic. That's the cosmos. Everywhere you look in the universe, you can't look at a place in the sky where you're not looking at 10,000 galaxies. They just might not be bright enough to see. And that's the kind of music I want to write. I want to write this sound. Maybe it won't last for 10,000 galaxies worth of time, but for just a fleeting moment, it will last in your mind, in your imagination as a framework for you to become 10,000 galaxies, And yeah, this music is kind of audience hostile. It's kind of avant-garde. It's a bit dissonant. There's no good tunes. I can write good tunes. I choose not to. But maybe by listening to it and really hearing what it's doing instead of, having all these other preconceived notions about music and expectations going into it, it becomes the definition of a musical universe in and of itself. And that is something that I hope I can create and bring to you because maybe I get this in a way that you've never gotten it before, but now you can. It's happening right now to the speakers. So that's all I'm going to say, but we can turn it up and listen to the end of the universe, possibly. Great. Excellent. So thank you very much. Remember, keep looking up and listen to.